Everyone, I'm Allison. Thank you for joining me for Where I'm From 222 with Jessica. That's a fun number, 222. What have you been reading? I've been reading Lost and Found, a memoir by Catherine Schultz. Kelly, who joined me last week for a poem, recommended this book, and it's really beautiful. It's about Catherine, the death of her father. That's the lost part. And then it's like a larger conversation about loss and losing things and all the things that brings up in us. And then Found is about falling in love with her partner, Casey, and all the things you find, love, and rediscover. Like she says, there's two types of finding, like when you find something new and then when you find something you've lost. And then the last part is called And. I haven't got to that part, but I assume it's about just kind of life and how and is as oh, actually she has a quote in there about how it's a famous quote that I'm not going to be able to do. But at the end there's always and. There's never like an ending. There's always and. So anyway, I'm enjoying it. Thank you, Kelly, for the recommendation. I am accepting your invitation or your request. Um, and oh, look how well that worked, Jessica.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Okay, great.
because sometimes it takes a while. So anyway, congratulations. That was really quick.
Thank you.
You did a great job. Um, and I also want to say your childhood picture, all of them bring me a lot of joy. It's actually one of the best parts of my week when I just randomly get someone's childhood picture in my
Uh,
inbox. But yours made me laugh because you said, what did you say when you sent me the picture?
I that I look like a little old person with my hands
Y-
folded,
Yeah,
looking kind of irritated that I have to wait. I'm
yeah,
waiting for
you
my
do.
cake.
You
Yeah.
really do. And
Mhm.
it made me think too of like when my children were smaller, I would have moments where I felt like, oh, I'm not going to be alive when they're old, but like this is my
Mhm.
chance to see them when they're old because children
Yes.
do have these moments where you're like, oh, you're like an old person right now. And so that picture
Yep.
really, I don't know, it's just such a great, um,
It's one of the rare pictures I have where I really look like my dad. I hadn't looked at any of these pictures in forever. And
yeah.
my dad had even, until the end of his life when he was sort of playfully waiting for something, he had that same expression and he would
Mhm.
fold his hands. And
Mhm.
so I loved finding it because I thought it's so great to have that where
Yeah.
I'm always
Yeah.
told I look like my mom.
Same. Same.
And so it was just nice to
Mhm.
have that too.
It is funny. I think oftentimes we're told we look like the same gender parent, just because
Mhm.
people lack imagination. It's like, oh, you look like and we have the same color hair and the same eyes and, like all the sort
Mhm.
of defining things. But yeah, I many times then people would meet my dad and be like, oh, you also look like him, like,
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, which is, you know, so
It's
it's,
nice, especially once they're gone, to see that kind of continuity. So,
yeah. Yeah, we're getting older.
yep.
We're getting older. I was
Yep.
just saying, I'm reading Lost and Found by Catherine Schultz. I don't know if you've read it, but it's about a death and her father's
No.
death, and then her finding love at the same time. So it's kind of
Oh.
a beautiful book about
Hmm.
all the things we lose and all the things we find,
Yeah.
and it's hitting me in the right place right now. I think especially this time of year, I find it to be kind of a blue time of year a
Yeah.
little bit. Um,
Hmm.
so I think all the forced conviviality, like all of that is like, okay.
Yeah.
Also, there's, there's,
There's a lot of
I,
reflection. Our
yes,
bodies just want to
yes,
be cozy
yes,
and sleepy anyway, and
yes,
so the high energy demands of the holidays, I think,
yeah,
can end up feeling really artificial.
yes. And I mean, you're outside Chicago, right? So like,
Hmm.
you just had a lot of snow, and I mean, I
Yep.
went to college there, and it's cold. It's really cold.
Yeah, it's not good. my tolerance for it decreases with age. I told my students, I think maybe I'm realizing it's like a biological process that you
Mhm.
eventually become the person who wants to move to Florida no matter what. Like you can't help it. You can hate it your whole life and be like, I'll never live there. And then like every year my body is just craving warm, like
Mhm.
more and more. And I'm like, well,
Yeah. Or
maybe.
Arizona as a case,
Yes.
depending on your,
Yeah.
I think geographically the
Yeah.
country sort of splits and Florida or Arizona.
Yeah, Chicago
I
goes to Florida. That's
Yes, I
yeah.
remember when I moved there because I had always lived on the West Coast. I was like, what are we talking about? Like it was really strange. It was, I mean, that's sort of, the joy of living different places is that things that you thought you knew were actually much more regional than you imagined.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and I really appreciate that about the poems as well,
Mhm.
getting to hear people's really specific
Yeah.
memories of where they grew up and where they're from.
Oh yeah.
Would you like to read your poem, Jessica?
Yes, I went way off my prompt, but I started there. And so
I was
I
wondering if
it
you
was
did use it at all, or
I
if you were
did.
just
And
like,
then
no.
I'm a relentless editor. Like I
Mhm,
am constantly fussing with what I write. And
mhm,
so then it just kept becoming, something of what it wanted to be, I think.
mhm, mhm. Yeah.
Where I'm from. If we are to speak of place, beech-pine and cold beach, sand of rock and bone, tumbled fine over time, before the bay ran red, its mouth fenced with heads on sticks. Warning, then whitewash. A town of vanishings, history distant or fresh. Whatever used to be there is there still, except jobs. I had to leave town to be from it. Not everyone did. If we are to speak of blood, noiseless tenor, plow and scythe, dirt turned, barbed, gone. Line after line, then bright line of starting over, alone, helpless, as in no one coming, no one welcome. Built on cantilevered limb, storm worn and weary. My only understanding and all I return to, a place you can't see, even when you do.
Thank you. That sort of goes well with this, what we were talking about this time of year being a little bit blue. Um,
It is, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I grew up in a really small town in northern Michigan, so that's
Mhm,
where um, it's my real home, even though I
mhm,
live outside of Chicago because of work and everything else.
mhm,
So,
mhm.
mhm.
Yeah, yeah, so you did use the prompt. When I read it, I thought, oh, I wonder if she just did it, which is totally fine. I'm
No, I
not
stay.
married to anything. Um, but so what was the process like for you then? You're a relentless editor, which is a great
Uh-huh.
quality.
I tend to cut most of the time. Like
Hmm,
things
hmm,
get shorter and shorter.
hmm,
Um, I think it's a wonderful thing to be asked to think about because it's so vexed for me.
hmm.
Um, I'm
Same.
very, very proud of the people, uh, my people where I'm from. I'm protective of them. Um, I react really viscerally to how small town people, rural people, are described and derided. Um, at the same time, I'm not unaware of the deep flaws in the community. It is very much a Trump country area. It is very much um, wary of change and strangers. Um, Everything that's wonderful about it has a flip side. Um, the fact that you can depend on your neighbors and that you can rely on them, and that telling people when I'm there, I grew up here, I graduated high school here, my mom still lives here, you probably knew her, or my dad, that opens all of these doors of welcome and kindness in a way that I never experience in a metropolitan area. At the same time, it people who are not from there never become from there. I feel like at this point I can claim Chicago. I've been here long enough where I can be like, oh, I live in Chicago. I'm from Chicago. you don't really get to do that if you're not from my you were born in my hometown.
Mhm. Yeah.
I've had friends come visit.
Mhm.
I left town for college, then I went to graduate school at Iowa, and I got a PhD, and um, that's really unusual in town.
Mhm.
And I would bring back my friends who were often wealthier backgrounds, and I had people. There are two occasions where they both separately, specifically said exactly the same thing, and that was, "I can't believe you're from here."
Mhm.
Um, and it upset me so much because I thought, what do you mean? I know they meant it as an insult to the place, like somehow I had risen above something, like they're from here, and
Mhm.
I thought, well, this is also who I am, right? Like you can't insult this community and everything that it's been through and everything that all the generations before it have been through, good and bad, and then expect me to be like, I take that as a compliment because
Mhm.
I love those people
Mhm.
with all their flaws,
Mhm.
and in spite of those flaws. There are things I wish that would change. There's history I wish we could revise. I mentioned the river with the heads on sticks. The
Mhm.
original name of the town, before it became Ludington, and named after I don't know, some lumber baron
Some
probably, I
guy.
think. Yeah, some guy who as far as I know, never actually even went there. He just
That's
owned,
also
yeah,
interesting. If you do research, lots of times it's not a resident. It was someone
no, it's
who,
just
yeah.
somebody who's friends
Mhm.
with someone.
Yeah.
Here, we'll name a town after you. Was an Ottawa word, I believe. I don't know the pronunciation, but it
Mhm.
translates to river with heads on sticks because
Wow.
it was the location of a huge battle between
Mhm.
a few tribes, and they marked their victory by putting their enemies' heads on spikes at the mouth of the river.
Mhm.
Um, and which is just a great story for, I wish we had kept the name, frankly. Um, um, but is another part of like the ambivalence of loving a place like that is that it was built on driving out people who lived there and
I mean, that's
erasing their
most
history.
places here, is it not?
It is, and it's something I'm really I would try to work on in my new book too, that's coming out in February. That I It's a lot of digging into like what it means to honor and understand ancestry
Mhm.
when you're a white American whose
Mhm.
family has been here a long time.
Mhm.
You've been That means that you're the product of a lot of admirable, strong, tough people and a lot of people who did a lot of horrible things, and you
Mhm.
can't be one or the other, you're both.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think, I mean, I remember back when we were talking about these things more during the pandemic, there was a time when people were really talking about this stuff, and now the time has sort of passed a little bit. But I was listening to, a bunch of thought leaders, and they were talking about how white people have a tendency to appropriate, right, other
Mm-hmm,
ancestors, because we're so uncomfortable with our own, and that it would be really worth our time and energy to reckon with our own ancestors
mm-hmm,
and have a relationship with those ancestors because it'll help everybody if we
mm-hmm,
do. And I think that's a little part of the reason I was drawn to this in myself was like because I do have ancestors too, right? Who did troubling things and also survived and had troubling things done to them. I mean, that's
mm-hmm,
why most Europeans came here.
mm-hmm.
And I mean, Europeans, they don't have a great history of
Right.
the way they
Mm-hmm.
the way they treated before they
Mm-hmm.
treated everyone here horrifically, they were treating each other horrifically.
Yes.
So it's yeah, I think it's
Mm-hmm.
worth sitting with for sure. It's
Yeah.
uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
but
So
it's
it was,
true.
writing this poem was so interesting to me because I want to express my love of my home,
Hmm. Yeah.
and at the same time to do so without acknowledging what other people see there, you
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
and what my mom struggles with still living there, being in a political minority,
Yeah.
feeling at times very, overwhelmed and sometimes outright menaced by
Yeah.
the politics of the area.
Yeah.
You know, as much as we love the people there, I think in some ways it's the way you talk about family that you're both proud of and reluctant to talk about. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, because the judgment of particularly people who, like me, went on to unnecessary amounts of education, and ended up in the scholarly world, is that that there's absolutely a reckless, hideous classism and elitism
Sure.
about these people that infuriates me. So I
Sure.
have to walk that line between the not romanticizing and saying, "Oh, they're the heart, of
Right.
America. They're
Right.
wonderful. They're,
Right. Hmm.
because it's not that simple.
It's not one
But
thing.
they're also not all, whatever various stereotype it is that people come up with when they're making fun of people who have to shop at Walmart or farm and fleet.
Hmm. No, I mean, and it's interesting because this theme, I think, the third person in that sort of this fall who's been from a small town, talked about the loss of when you leave, of like having people
Hmm.
you can rely on, having people
Hmm.
you see
Hmm.
physically with regularity, and also leaving
Hmm.
because of there wasn't a future there
Right.
for. And so I think, and it makes me think of this thing my friend sent me yesterday, like a social justice kind of person talking about the one thing that we can all do is be friends with people, like be present
So
and
hard.
be friends. um, because what these people want is for us to hate each other,
Hmm.
urban and
Hmm.
rural, black and white, men and
Hmm.
women, all of us to just hate each other. And if we can be present and be friends, we're doing
Hmm.
like revolutionary things. And
Right.
um and you talking about where you're from, I think it isn't perfectly in line with that idea, is that you're not trying to erase what happened or what you experienced or what your mother is currently experiencing, but you're
Hmm.
just trying to also hold that with their people. They can be friends.
Hmm. Hmm.
They
And
can
I
be
think,
reliable, lovely people.
yes.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
The
yeah.
kindness of the community after my dad was a lifelong therapist at community mental health. He actually
Wow.
started the community mental health agency. That's why he moved up there.
Wow.
And my mom did social work as well, and so they knew everyone,
Yeah,
which
that's
made it
amazing.
very hard to
That's
misbehave as a teenager.
incredibly
Um,
powerful work your parents
it
did.
is, and
Yes, yes, you couldn't
to hear how
misbehave,
they,
Jessica. You had to leave to do that.
yeah, very much like you're just like, wait, how did you hear about that? Immediately.
Hmm.
Um, but they the way that there was this gratitude towards what my dad had done for
Hmm.
people after he
Hmm.
passed was
Hmm.
something that is unlike anything that I would experience now. To walk
Hmm.
into, like, the
Hmm.
first time my mom and I went out to a restaurant, and then to have, the waitresses come by kind of one by one and talk about my dad, and they remembered bringing him his turkey dinners, and they, like, just what a gentle person and what a kind person and all these things. And I thought, like, this is, I don't love the idea of my mom at this age living alone far away. Like, it's like four or
Sure.
5 hours. But if she's going
I deal
to,
with the similar thing. Yes. Hmm.
a community like that where
She has people
people
who
are
will care for her.
noticed.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so I thank you for exploring all of this and reckoning with it, because I think it can be a gift of growing and becoming older and having some distance, like
Hmm.
that we can engage with these questions.
Hmm.
And I think it's a privilege to have that time and space to do that. And so I'm thanks for doing it. I enjoy, I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but I feel like it's important to me to do it. And it's funny because I'm from a wealthy place. And so I have similar comments. Like people will say like, "Oh, I can't believe you're from there." So it's funny to hear you saying it about a rural place because for me it is also said as a compliment because I
Yes.
am not like that. Um, and it is funny because I mean, I take it as I know that the intent with which they're saying it,
Mhm.
but it's it's part of me too. It's why I can walk into a room full of people who are full of shit and not feel like they're not full of shit because I grew up surrounded by people who were. And that there's a certain power that I have because of how much I was surrounded by that kind of privilege that I see
Mhm.
that it's not real. It
Right.
doesn't make them smarter or better or whatever everybody is, what not everybody, what a certain type of person is peddling as truth.
Mhm.
Um, it's not. And to have that firsthand experience has certainly been helpful for me in my life.
Absolutely. I think
Um,
it's what was interesting was being in a PhD program and British literature, no less, is like,
well,
it
wow.
was like the um I learned how to construct myself as
Sure.
having a much more, I don't know, erudite manner. Like I
Mhm.
could pass, I guess is what
Sure.
I'm saying,
Yep.
as a more elevated background than I was
Hmm.
from. And it took me quite a while to circle back to figuring out that that was playing a part and not being who I wanted to be. And what my students need and what I needed was somebody who understood that they are as worthy and as wonderful as anyone that we would find at the Ivies. And the only way I could do that was to be who I am as a
Yourself. Yeah.
poet, as a
Hmm.
professor.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a journey, right? Like we,
Yes, very much a hard one.
and I think also like finding ourselves in there and finding what is us and what is
Mhm.
passing in an act. And, because we also do a lot of it just people living in the world and then as women and then as, all these different things we do.
Absolutely.
Um, so it was interesting hearing you. And I'm always struck by, it sort of circles back to that idea of friends. Like I am always struck when I'm in conversation with people about their poems and how much we are connected, which is something I deeply
Yes.
believe and
Hmm.
gets me through times like
Hmm.
these, and also breaks my heart too. But
Hmm.
like it's both. But I think we are deeply connected, and the more we acknowledge it, the better off
Absolutely.
ultimately we will be. Um, so I hope I said out loud, but if I didn't, I'm going to say it now. Thank you for your poem. I found it really powerful. I appreciated that. I think it would be so cool, not that you need to, but like to share it with your students to show like the power of a jumping off point and that you can go all different directions with it,
That would
like because
actually
I
be
think,
great. That's a
yeah,
good idea.
because I think
I mean,
sometimes
like,
people
here's the
get
prompt.
really like intimidated, like, or
Hmm.
nervous about it. And they'll write me and
Hmm.
say, "Oh, do I need to stay?" I'm like, I don't like this is just for you, however it works for you. And
And
I think
I
your
want to
poem's such a
thank
great
you.
example.
I want to thank you so much for this
Oh, yeah.
because it really is something I've been wanting and needing to write about. And
Mhm,
so to
mhm.
have this kind of assignment, more or less, like right where I'm like, okay, let's do it, was, I mean, it of course there's no, it just is the prompt, the urge, like
Yes.
it
I'm
got
a
me to
really
finally
generous
sit down with
grader,
this.
so you all
Good.
got A's. Everybody got an
I'm very grateful for the chance to actually sit down and get this poem out of me.
A.
So,
Well,
yeah.
thank you for your willingness. I really appreciate it. I think I don't even remember why I originally reached out to you, but sometimes your Facebook posts like really just hit me and I like think, I don't even know this person. But I appreciate your vulnerability and you are willing to say things in a form that I am deeply uncomfortable with because of I'm just amazed at the vitriol sometimes that people will come at people with there.
Mhm.
And I'm like, what is happening? Um,
Yes.
and you continue to be vulnerable, and I applaud you because it's not easy. And I think like, wow,
Thank you.
here's this person I don't know again saying some things. are really vulnerable, and potentially someone's going to come at her because people
Yes,
come at you, and it's like,
yes.
what is?
And
I'm just
it's
so,
unusual to me. It's always surprising to me, frankly.
yeah,
But
because I don't feel like you are saying anything that's like so, I don't even remember what the
oh
things were, but it's just like, wow, what is going on?
no, you don't have to say much of anything to become the target for someone who needs to just
Yeah,
get their stuff out of their system for the day.
yeah,
And
wow,
I, we will look back and see all of the things we've done wrong in this era. And however much I love social media for bringing writers together in moments like this, I
yeah.
cannot help but think it is a net negative in
It is very difficult, I think. And I mean, I got off
overall.
it
Like,
for a time, like a long
mhm.
chunk of time, and then it was like, oh, this is probably something I need to do professionally. I roll.
We're
But
seldom our best selves, you know?
I really tried to be because I think
Yes,
like also I am consistently blown away. Your name is right there. Like you are not anonymous. Wow.
yep. Hmm.
And
I
then they're
know.
like, well, I don't know any of these people. I know that the thinking is like, well, I don't know any of these people. We don't, and you're just like, uh, anyway, I try
Yes.
to be like, I do try to be a good person. What my definition of that, like, show up and be generous and like kind. And,
Hmm.
and I
Yeah.
know that that's not always the
It's
way
all
with
we can
people.
do, though. I mean,
Yes. Like, try to
yeah.
be when you're at the grocery store, like a nice person, you know?
Right.
And I
It's
feel like, don't be the person that after you leave, which literally happened to me at Costco last week, after the person in front of me left, they're like, "Oh man, that's
right.
me," Like,
Yeah.
don't be that person.
Right.
Be the person they say that to
Right.
when they're venting.
You want to be there to lift them back up after that.
And try to do that online. Anyway, I
Yeah.
appreciate you. Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much
much.
for your willingness. This has been such a
I
pleasure.
loved
I
it.
want to
Thank you.
say your students are lucky to have you.
Thanks.
I like I know it's
They're waiting
really
for their
hard out
grades, so I
there.
think they disagree right now, but we will.
Well, as long as you don't use Chat GPT to give them grades, you're winning
Oh
the
God,
because
never.
that is the
Curse it.
um but I know it's a hard time to be a teacher. And so I just applaud you.
Thank you.
I know it's not easy. So
Thank you.
thank you. All right. Good
Thank
to
you so
talk to you,
much.
Jessica. Okay, bye.
Bye.